Whenever you want to listen to good music or consume good art, how do you usually find it? Some may love the process of digging and searching endlessly for their new favorite artist or an old school gem that they might have missed out on, but for others, they rely on a specific sect of people in the creative community. Those who have built and created a reputation for themselves having really, really good taste. And this role of large scale curation comes in many forms. But at the end of the day, whatever that role looks like, it forces the person into the job of becoming a professional creative communicator. And on this episode, I was lucky enough to talk to one of my favorite people doing this right now, Daylon Hicks of ARABBITSHOLE. Daylon has been on my radar for a long time, so I was glad we finally got to connect to share a conversation of how he amassed over 11,000 community members by just being himself. But before we do that, please make sure to subscribe and like this video so you can stay up to date with everything we have going on here at Procrastination Radio, including these amazing conversations with amazing creatives. But for right now, I hope you enjoy Daylon Hicks in conversation. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Procrastination Radio Show. I'm your host, Ian Complex, back with another amazing conversation with another amazing guest. Today, we have the curator and owner behind ARABBITSHOLE, Daylon Hicks. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's a good Sunday. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to get things started.
Yeah, man. I've been following your page for a really long time, and there's a lot of things I want to get into about kind of like the ethos and why you care so much about what you do. But I firstly wanted to ask you a very important question. This Friday was a really big Friday for music, and I kind of wanted to know what from that drop have you been listening to?
Yeah, so I noticed that as well. I feel like the important drop for me that I listened to was that Catriona release. I was definitely
100%.
listening to that like a whole bunch.
Yeah,
It was an anticipated album for me. I'll say like it's honestly one of my early album of the years for 2024. Just a stat lineup.
yeah,
You got Tinashe, Maria the Scientist, Thundercat, all those artists that really kind of like integrate that kind of experimental sound, whereas like,
yeah,
Tinashe is like an R&B artist, but in all reality, she can blend in across various genres. And it feels like with that album that Catriona dropped, it felt like he just got the best from like each artist, not even to mention Childish Gambino and all those
yeah,
other great
yeah.
artists. So for me, that was like the highlight for Friday.
Yeah, it was crazy seeing, like you said, the amount of music that was inside of that project and just the listenability and just from so many perspectives is really enjoyable. But again, yeah, to kind of get into it, just wanting to know because your page and what you've done has been so cool to see and just like the amount of consistency that you've had with design and being able to like explore different fields and looks and collaborate with other brands inside of kind of this space. I kind of wanted to know what was the reasoning behind starting this in the first place.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for that. I'm greatly
Of
appreciative of
course.
it.
Yeah.
I feel like I started a rabbit hole and, obviously there's a long version, there's a short version, but I figured out how to explain it in the middle version. But
Yeah.
pretty much, in 2020 in November, I started a rabbit hole. I knew that I wanted to do something as far as like music curation,
Yeah.
and just all around kind of like talking about my perspective of music because I see how other people talk about music. And I mean, it's cool, but I feel like for me, it's like there's a lot more other genres that wasn't really talked about as much. Like I talk a
Yeah.
lot about alternative and ambient because
Yeah.
those are like my favorite genres to listen to. But of
All
course,
right.
I always highlight hip hop, R&B, like when I can.
Yeah.
Um, that was kind of like my vision going into it. That's why I wanted a rabbit hole to be. But like for the first 3 years, because I was also doing track and field as a student athlete, I didn't really see that vision. Like it took me a while to kind of figure out what it is that I wanted a rabbit hole to be today. So I was just mostly doing album reviews and having conversations like very early on, just kind of like finding my footing. But then when I graduated from college, in 2023, that summer, I kind of just had that like vision. Like, I'm like, okay, I came up with a new graphic and,
Yeah.
I started to slowly just kind of build a rabbit hole. And,
Yeah.
the graphic is like very simple, but at the same time, it's like that was kind of the intent. Because like if you go
Yeah,
ahead and see a lot of different blogs, like I get it.
yeah,
Like as a social media blog, your challenge is to like appeal to a wide audience, and
right,
obviously like
right,
those are one of the methods. But at the same time, it's like for me, I kind of wanted to go a different route. Like if I was gonna bring in the audience, I was gonna do it for my writing, and I was gonna do it for the
yeah,
artists I featured, not just because I'm like highlighting artists like Kanye, Kid Cudi. Like of
right,
course I'm
right,
highlighting those artists, but like if I'm highlighting those artists, I'm gonna do it in a way that's like never been talked about before, or maybe
yeah.
it doesn't talk about as much.
That's such an interesting point because I think as like I'm grappling with the way to visually tell the story of a lot of these people, and like you said, you're trying to do a lot of things at the same time. Sometimes, there might not be as much notability behind a person as like a Kanye. So like, okay, how do I get their attention, but also keep it consistent? And I think what you said was really cool because you're like, okay, cool, I want to do all those things, but also like leave my stamp and be like, this is how I do things. And again, trying to pinpoint that specific of the writing and your journalism background. Like how does that kind of manifest in the writing, and do you have to like hold yourself back from ever wanting to do a full, I know you do those also, but wanting to do a full write up on an Instagram post, you're like, oh, maybe this isn't the time. Like how do you balance that?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I hold myself back.
Yeah.
I, so like, there's a difference as like you may know. So obviously, I like my deeper dig series, or like I
Yeah.
highlight, you know, artists that are like I think are sick. But like for me, I kind of like, all right, that's kind of like my go-to. Like, all right, this is where I'm like able to write freely and just kind of like
Right.
right. Like sometimes I'm gonna keep it honest. There has been one time where I wrote over 1,200 words
Wow.
on a single artist, and so I'm like, clearly this is not gonna work for
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to like scrap it up to like 400 words. That's like the
Yeah.
even middle because like
Yeah.
sometimes I have a lot to say, and like when you have a lot to say, you kind of have to find an even middle where like you're talking your talk, like you're staying true to yourself, but at the same time,
Right.
you're finding ways to appeal to artists. So I made a couple of those mistakes early on, where I just felt like, man, I could talk about this artist in a lot of different ways for a lot of
Right.
different times, but at the same time, you got to be like, all right, let me just back down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting now because I think figuring out ways to kind of split it up into different forms of content has been the kind of the struggle, because I think coming from a different writing background from screenwriting, like you want to give context to everything and make everything make sense. So then you see people who are more like an Annabelle Klein who are doing these like talking videos, and you're like, okay, this is really awesome, and then you're like, okay, cool, but then I have to get in front of the camera. So it's like with every movement comes a different thing, and um, this is kind of an unrelated question, kind of thinking about what you're saying of you being a student athlete. I kind of want to know now your process in day to day of creating as much as you do because you are like admirably, you put out so many things. And I want to know what your balance in life looks like in comparison to when you were a student athlete doing this, and how do those kind of compare?
Yeah, 100%. First of all, that's sick that you're a screenwriter. I kind of envy
Yeah.
you, bro. Like, cause like I wanted to get into screenwriting, but
Yeah.
obviously, like I did not know that was like that was something that I didn't know that I wanted to do until it was
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
too. I just stuck with
Yeah.
journalism. That's like
Yeah.
sick, bro. I just wanted to give you your flowers on that because you
No,
deserve that.
bless. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but as far as being a student athlete goes, that was something that was hard. Like, if I had to do it all over again, I mean, I obviously would, but like that was like the hardest time for me starting a rabbit hole because it's like shit, like I just kind of have to like navigate a lot of different things at once, and deep down, it's like you never really get the opportunity to find your center because like when you're focusing on school and you're focusing on harnessing track, which takes up so much of your time, that's just something that's like you really have no room to be a creative. And
Yeah.
for me, that's why I felt like when I was in college for those when I was in college for those 4 years and I was doing a rabbit hole for those 3 years, I wasn't really giving 100% towards it, and it
Mm,
wasn't like intentional. Like it wasn't for me just being lazy. It was just
yeah,
like I was so burnt out by the end of the week that when I had an opportunity of doing a rabbit hole stuff, it was like, yo, I don't even want to do this because I'm
yeah,
exhausted. But
that's true.
compare that to like when I graduated college. Oh man, like there was a point when I was posting 20 times a week for
Oh my
3 months.
goodness!
I kid you not. I kid you not. And I never felt overworked. I was never overworked. Like, I kid you not.
Wow.
There was like a schedule like in what was it? It was May of
Yeah,
2023. I just got my diploma. I was in Pullman because I went to Washington State University. Pullman's
yeah.
kind of like a smaller town and stuff like that. I was in Pullman for a week. And for that week, I literally worked on like 40 posts in a span of like 2 days. And so I just had like layers upon layers. Like I don't even know how many words I wrote. I don't even remember that.
That's
It was just a
crazy.
lot. And so when I got back home, I was like, all right, I'm actually gonna like try to post, like corroborated with
Yeah,
so many people. A lot of that is in the archives because I didn't like it because of my
yeah,
writing early. So it was just a very long process. It almost felt like I don't know if you're familiar with anime or not, but like there's a scene from Naruto, and like
yeah,
Naruto, he got the Nine Tails Fox like gated up, and then when Naruto opens up the gates and it's just like the beast was unleashed, that was
yeah,
literally like how I felt. Like I just felt like, all right, man, I have a go at it, and I just went with
yeah.
it.
That's 40 in a week is insane. But were you using like Photoshop or like what software were you using to do that? Like,
Nah, I was cheesy. I was using Canva.
no, that's real. That's real. No,
No, no, I still want to get into Adobe. Like I
yeah,
still am very familiar with Adobe. Like the thing about it is it's like my computer is like so old, like I kid you not. Like I was so scared that this podcast wouldn't work because my computer is so trash. But like, my computer is like a 2010 like MacBook Air. I had this since
yeah,
high school, freshman year of high school, which was like
that's real.
2015. Is real.
Has the legacy behind it. Has the story behind it. That's that's.
So
But
many
dude,
art.
no, it's crazy because like again, being able to find your page, not sure exactly when, but it was like earlier on, and just being able to again just see the process of everything, see how you communicate, see how you interview people, see how people would come on the page and how, like your comments, that's one of the most beautiful things I think, looking at your page, how many people are genuinely grateful for the finds that you're and like and the things you're suggesting, like that's one of the coolest parts. And I wonder for you, when you hit that 10,000, like after weeks of doing those 40 posts and different things, how did that feel to be like, okay, this is moving in a different way.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. That was such like a fulfilling moment for me. Like I
Yeah,
know that
yeah,
people like kind of overact and people are just like, oh man, I hit 10K. That's kind of a big deal. And I get it. Like there's a lot more people making great work and there's a lot more
yeah,
people doing things right. But I felt like for
for sure.
me, I stayed like true to self. Like
Yeah,
really, I didn't really try to do something that wasn't me. I never really
yeah,
done that. I just mostly stayed true to self, and like I felt like for me that was crazy because it was like, all right, like for someone who was just so strung up on like track and field, like
yeah,
for 4 years, like if you would have come up to me 4 years ago and you would say that, yo, you're gonna run a music blog, you're gonna do this, I would say no. Like I would
yeah,
literally say like, there's no way, like
yeah,
because I never thought I'd be able to do this, like.
right,
At first, I thought like a rabbit hole. Oh man, it would be kind of like a cool like little thing, but like
right.
I'll
Side
probably
project. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I'll probably quit in like a year. But like I'll say it started to really hit once like I started getting recognition from like, Paris, Texas.
yeah,
They reached out to me and they really liked my work and just kind of getting like building that community. I'm building a
right.
community in the area and building community out in LA and people are actually interested in what I have to say. And I
Yeah,
feel like for me that was like the most satisfying thing because I already accomplished my goal. Like I said to myself, if I got one person interested in what I had to say
Mm,
about music and about my taste, man, I kind of already accomplished my goal. So I already accomplished my goal within like the first 3 days. Now it's just like
yeah,
I'm having fun with it, and
right.
that's what a lot of people take for granted sometimes. Like, at the end of the day, you gotta really have fun with it. Cause like, it took me a while to figure that out too. Like,
Yeah,
I'll sometimes get so strung up, like, oh man, this post isn't doing well, or my interactions are super low. But like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, like, you gotta really just kind of be like, it doesn't necessarily matter. I feel like the thing that matters to me the most is that I'm discovering new music and I'm connecting with people on an everyday basis. Like, for me, that's what matters. Like, if I'm connecting with someone new that also captures the same creativity, and we're
yeah,
able to like build together, then all that other stuff will come.
yeah. Going off that point of finding different artists, like what is your process for that? Because I know that can take a lot of time to just kind of dig into it, even when you do love it, even when it is something that is natural for you to do. So like, how do you do that and balance? I think like I'm sure people are DMing you and sending you new music and trying to pass things your way. So how do you balance all of that just in an everyday kind of situation?
Yeah, no. I'll say that definitely. If it's not artists reaching out to me, I'll say that I kind of rely off of like, of course, platforms like Spotify and Apple
Yeah,
Music
yeah,
just to stay updated. But also at the same time, like my community, like I
mm,
discovered a lot of cool artists through people like SoundFind, even your stuff.
yeah,
Like I discovered Nolly through like your post back in
right,
March.
right,
I was
yeah,
like, like this guy's doing it right. So like people like you who are posting like sick stuff, like everyone I
yeah,
feel like there's flowers, procrastination, that good shit, sound fine. There's so many like good creatives that I got to know. And I mean if I was to shout them all, that would take like an hour. But
yeah,
like, I feel like for me that's like the most important method is
yeah,
definitely having like the community reach out to me because it's almost like a snowball effect, right?
right,
So
right,
I was post like one artist, who's like in the community and they're doing sick stuff, man. I'll have like someone manager or someone in A&R reach out to me like,
right,
yo, like check out this artist, like she's doing some sick work, like, and I just want to share this story because I feel like this story is kind of like a highlight for a rabbit hole,
yeah,
but
yeah,
there's this artist. Her name is Juliet Ivy, and you may or may
mm,
not know of her, but like she's an alternative artist,
mm,
and I discovered her back in early 2023. This is
mm,
like this is like when I graduated out of college, 2023.
yeah,
And so this here me doing like 20 posts, like
right,
20 posts like a week, absolutely going
yeah,
crazy. And then I have this manager, her name is like her manager reached out to me, or Julia reached out to me herself, and she was like, "Yo,
yeah,
I want you to check the project." And I did, and I kid you not, I came up with a post with it so fast because it was so good. Like
yeah,
everything that she did was right, like her flow, her vocal presence, just all around how she carries herself. That was like the most important thing. And she was at like, 2,000 followers, monthly streams was like not as high. But then you fast
yeah,
forward to
yeah,
now, she's at 100K. One of her videos went viral. She just did a tour with 88 Rising, and she's doing
that's
all these
crazy.
things for herself. But like, I'm pretty
Yeah,
proud. I was one of the artists that discovered her early. But
yeah,
that's what I kind of build off of. Like, whenever I see the community doing well, that's kind of like what I get the most pleasure from.
yeah. The community has been so supportive. It's like really cool. Like all the artists that you're mentioning, all the people who are curating these things. Like I think it's like you said, it's really nice that everybody is so supportive. Because it could be the other way around. Like it could be like everybody like nah, like you stepping on my turf, you stepping on my toes. But it's like I think fundamentally, as soon as one of us interacts with another one, it's like we're following each other, like we're talking, like we're just communicating, we're in each other's comments, and because it is, I think that love for it is the thing that is bringing it together and kind of taking that ego away. Um, because I think as many artists, I think that we have in crossover that we have in common, there's so many other people who aren't being shared, who aren't being highlighted, who aren't being like supported. So I think it's such a kind of everlasting system that feels really cool to be a part of and to be in communication with so many great people. And um I'm wondering for you, again, talking about this, like I sense you have this kind of athletic approach to even how you do things. Like the 40 post feels like kind of like marathon stuff. When do you ever get like fundamentally tired? Like, I'm not going to lift another finger today. I'm going home. I'm turning my computer off. And then when you do get there, what does your day look like at that point?
Yeah, yeah. Too many times. Too many times. That's all I gotta say about that. But yeah, early on I wasn't really. Cause it
Yeah.
felt like for me, I was trying to play catch up. But like,
Mm.
all right, now that I might able to actually do the things that I want to do, it feels like I'm playing catch up. So like
Yeah.
I was definitely posting, trying to post as much as I can. But like
Yeah.
as I really started to get into it, and I mean I was doing that mindset for 3 months. That was the mindset for 3 months.
That's
And I was
crazy.
doing that while my mom was telling me, like, yo, like, have you thought about applying for jobs? So I was applying
Yeah.
for jobs, doing a rabbit hole. And it just felt like school all over again. Whereas like I
Yeah.
was juggling so many like balls at once, and it felt
Right.
like, all
Right.
right, bro, I gotta chill. But like I experienced my first burnt out probably in like probably October, like around my birthday. And I was like, I kind of put it into like perspective where it's like, yo, like I'm not really gonna get as much interaction as I want to because it's about quality, not
For
quantity.
sure. For
So
sure.
when I thought about that, I was like, all right, let me dial it back a little bit. And
Yeah.
so like obviously my schedule changed a lot as far as I would post, but now it's like I kind of got a good center of how I'm on post and how what it is I want to do. But when I'm not doing a rabbit hole, to be honest with you, I'm just a regular dude.
Yeah.
I'll be chilling, like sometimes I'll play on my Switch, I'll play Smash, or I'll go to the gym, or I'll be coaching. But like kind of things that like takes me outside of music, because sometimes like everything music related, like of course I love music, and like I involve myself with music like every single day, but at the same time, the more you start to really get into it, the more you start to view music in a different perspective. So there was points in my life where it's like, yo, I don't even want to listen to music because I'm so exhausted. But now it's like, and I'm blessed. I'm so blessed that I found this even middle where I'm able to separate my love for music compared to my work for music. Like I could
Mm.
just listen to like
Mm.
a day, and I could just kind of
Yeah.
that'll just fuel my energy more. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
like when you listen to artists that that are doing good work, and you're like, yo,
Yeah.
like it just drives you more. Like that's why I
Yeah.
really that's why I really felt. I was like, yo, like when I was listening to this Sade album, that kind of fueled my fire more. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like I felt overworked, but then all it took was me listening to Love Deluxe. And
Right. Right. Right.
really, I'm like, let's get back to it. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
beauty of
That's so real. I think I'm in that place where I was facing a lot of burnout very, very often because I also work in a creative space for like my 9 to 5 job. So it
Mhm.
was like one thing of doing that, then coming home and being like, all right, cool, I got to set this up, got to do these things. But again, like you said, it's the passion and the joy in finding those little moments that still make you feel like, okay, I know why I'm doing this. And then the biggest one, because I'm such a homebody that I just would be home all the time, but just going outside and then actually talking to these people and making connections, not just to network, I think was one of the biggest things. And I think very funny, a lot of people comment on that. It's like, okay, is it like a business transaction, or it's like, are you just trying to be my friend kind of thing? And I think it's really nice to connect to people on a human level. And I think that's like, I think I said it like in another episode, but it's like selfishly why I do this, because I get to talk to people I admire and be like, let's just connect on a human level and not on like I'm trying to make a play, trying to make a move. But it's also like
Yeah.
other people can see this because I think we're in the information age, so it's like people who would want to do something that you like that you do or are inspired by you. Like, I think getting insight into the process and the day to day is like a really cool thing that we can do now and just share. Um, and again, I love the way you interview people because it feels so natural and it feels so just straightforward. It's like the way it's rare to see like artists that comfortable because I think a lot of people go into it and like, okay, I'm gonna get interviews, gonna be similar questions, but everybody just seems so relaxed and just not on edge. And I want to know kind of what it's been like being like a professional communicator, and
Uh,
if there's anything you picked up on your journey in these last couple of years that you could share with people who are maybe trying to do something similar to you.
yeah, of course. Also, I got a question that I want to ask you, but I'll answer
Yeah.
that after. But
Okay. For sure. For sure.
one of the things that I really try to do is, and as a communicator, my mom, she's also a communicator. She communicates
Yeah.
with people really well. So I got to shout
Yeah.
out her. Also shout out to my dad and my brother because they are excellent communicators as well.
Shout out.
But
Yeah.
I feel like for me, it kind of took me a while. It was definitely like repetition because I'll say
Mm-hmm.
that the first interview that I've done, I mean, I'm still working on the setup, of course, because I obviously don't
Yeah.
like the Zoom setup.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, like just me kind of getting more familiar with interviewing people, and also I have a background in journalism, so it was a
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
kind of use those skills to
Right.
really kind
Right.
of get with it. But like the more time I got to talk to it, I was like less tense. Like if you see me
Yeah.
right now, like I'm relaxed because I'm
Right.
like,
Right. Right.
once you gotta get the understanding of the person, you're just kind of able to do whatever. You're like
a
able to
hundred
kick
percent.
back, kind of
Yeah.
chill, and like everything comes naturally.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed to be able to do that, like interviewing people like Annabelle and
Yeah.
this band on Saturdays, and like they're cool. Like I see how they're really relaxed, and truth
Yeah.
be told, I don't know why they relax. Like I could not pinpoint an answer where it's like, like why are you so relaxed? But I'm not gonna ask
Yeah.
them. But like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I feel like whenever like you don't really ask too much questions about music and you ask them more about them as a person,
Yeah.
then you're kind of getting the answers you want. That's what I
Right.
did. Like
Yeah.
instead of me asking questions like about their music right off grip, I'll ask them like that's one of my questions I ask. It's like, how would you describe yourself as a person?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
sounds repetitive. To be told it is repetitive, but that's the first
Mm.
question I'll always ask
Yeah.
because when I say digging deeper with music, it's not just digging deeper with their music. It's digging deeper with them as a person that kind of
Yeah.
builds their music. That's what
Yeah.
people misinterpret all the time. Like and that obviously has different meanings and that has different interpretations. But when I say digging deeper with music, I mean digging deeper with them as a person, how they convey their emotions, how they carry
Yeah.
their persona, and all that stuff that really goes into their music if you really think
Right.
about it. Like I don't know. I do this. Whenever I go to a concert, or I always look at their body. Like I always look
Mm.
at how they like carry themselves and the energy they give off.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
for example, I can tell that an artist is like kind of mellow because like their jaw is a lot more loose and their eyes are a lot more like not as open. Like and their
Yeah.
nostrils they're able to breathe smoothly, so they have
That's
better like
interesting.
vocal control and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're like less tense. They're not like here. They're not stiff. They're
Right.
like
Right.
more.
Right. 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 Right.
And that's just my background as an athlete as well. That I see that. But then you got the high pace energy with eyes. They're like open. Like
Yeah.
they're stiff, but at the same time they're just able to kind of get that energy because you're using a lot of energy, which takes a lot of muscles. You're
Yeah.
using a lot of muscles. Like people don't
Wow.
know that being an artist is essentially like being an athlete. That's the
Yeah.
one thing like people kind of take for granted. But I'll say that as far as interviewing artists, it's just me being me. And
Yeah.
once people understand that, like, yo, like he's not your typical kind of interviewer that tries to like kind of ask questions off rip and try to get to know
Yeah.
me, then it will be like mellow. That's what I think. That's my assumption.
That was a crazy. Just getting into that athletic component was that was a beautiful analogy, man. That was
I
like
knew you like. I knew you like
that
that.
was yeah. I was like ha ha ha.
I knew you like that.
It's so funny sometimes. Like I find myself trying not to overreact for like the audio purposes, but like when you just said that, I wanted to like throw everything around and be like, that's crazy that I haven't thought about that in that way. But I'm like, suppress it, suppress it, suppress it, hold.
Yeah.
Like it's that, yeah, that was amazing. But I think to answer your question, like I think you did when you said you don't know why they're relaxed, but I think even just talking to you for a few seconds and seeing your interviews, it's like you're just the energy is like as soon as you got on the camera, I'm like, okay, cool, this is gonna be a great conversation. So like, yeah, kudos to you, man. But yeah, I'm still thinking about the athletic thing, but that's that's crazy that you're able to see that since that's where you come from.
Mhm.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
I gotta ask you,
That's
folks. I wanted
yeah,
to ask you this, earlier, but like, what do you do when you're overworked? You know, like this is also just for me too, because it's like sometimes it's like, right, you try to like kind of find different solutions to being overworked.
yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
one of my solutions, like you said, is going outside, and that's why I was thinking about
yeah.
it. I was like, I go outside, but like I feel like I don't really go outside truly. But like, I definitely want to
Yeah.
ask you what you do when you're overworked.
That's such a timely question. It's difficult, and I think it's changed so often because a lot of the things that worked before don't now. Um, I used to try to like watch a lot of things, but then that became taxing because I'm in front of a screen all the time for work. So I think really just I think having things that aren't connected to what I'm doing, like I really love to draw, and I don't draw for anyone but myself. So
Mm,
finding time to do things like that, or trying to like work out more, um, just to kind of have things that my mind doesn't need to think about, or just like reading books that are fiction. Like again, like trying to connect to like curiosities that I have and going down those rabbit holes. Not to push the pun, but going down those rabbit holes.
you gotta get one in. You gotta get one
I
in.
gotta do it. I gotta do it.
Yeah,
Just happens. Just happens.
fair.
But yeah, just trying to not center myself around this thing. And I think I did that a lot with my full time job where I was doing design. So I just was like, all right, this is all I got. This is what I got to give it to. But I think when you give yourself moments and time to breathe, and one of my friends recently, she was like, you got to schedule time to just rest and just to not think about things. And so like I'll
Mm,
have in my calendar just like after I get off, like give me like an hour of a block just to relax and not do anything, which is hard because I think as you know, like you're just always thinking of like what you can do and what you can create and different stuff. But
hmm
it's just like listening to my body and being like, all right, if you're tired, like you can sleep, and then um setting up like tools and templates so I don't have to give so much creative energy every time I'm doing it. I think that's like one of the highlight Canva, like one of the best things they have is just like you can just kind of repeat things. And so that's a whole other step that you're taking out of the process of being creative. So it just helps to do that. So yeah, I think just giving myself grace and like listening to my body, um, because my instinct is just to push every time, but just holding on to that. And then conversations like this, very honestly, like just talking offline with people who do it in different ways and asking the same questions, because that even gives me peace of mind to know that people are also stressed out in the same ways that I am. To just be like, okay, I'm not
hmm
the only one. Good. Like we're fine. We're doing okay. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah,
your approach
yeah.
is
So
definitely different than mine. Your approach is definitely different than mine. I'll say for me, I go to a
yeah,
new environment. I go to a new environment, so I'll go to like
interesting.
a state. So like for
Yeah,
example, like if I'm feeling overworked, I'll say like, all right, I'm gonna go to like my area, go to like a new space, and then maybe I
yeah,
find inspiration there. And I do,
interesting.
and it worked
Yeah,
out. One of the ways that I kind of get my inspiration. But also, what's kind of interesting is like I set out each morning to just kind of just breathe, like each day, you
mm,
know. So like I've been, and it's like I said, I've been such a morning person. That's why I didn't really trip about it being at
yeah,
night, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Like I wake up at 6:30 every day in the morning, and I kind of just breathe. Like I don't know, I listen to some
mm,
Andre 3000, you know, that album, absolute
yeah,
banger. But I go ahead, just kind of listen to my body, like you do, breathe, and
yeah.
just kind of like get on with the day. And when you have that moment where you're just like, you know, I feel prepared for the day, and then it just makes you that much better. in my opinion. It works out in so many different ways.
Yeah, yeah, that meditation, just having that, yeah, that moment with yourself. Like last thing I want to talk about, the world of music right now is in such an interesting space. I think with social media and everything outside of that, kind of, it feels like I don't know, like eyes are opening, but at the same time, like things are being misunderstood. Um,
Mhm.
and so I wonder where you sit in your position. How do you see this landscape changing, and where do you think it will go? And then I guess if you had to be optimistic, where would you want it to go on the other side of that?
Yeah, so I'll say that music is definitely in an interesting space right now.
Yeah.
I'll definitely talk about specific genres such as hip hop, R&B, and pop. All three of those genres face the same traits as like they're trying to make their music work for social media, but their music not work for themselves, which is kind of hard, right? Like when you think about an artist, like artists they don't really make money off of Spotify or Apple Music streams, you know. So what's their resort to bringing in an audience? Social media. So they go ahead. I see multiple artists do multiple trends, and I'm not gonna sit here and say like I get embarrassed or anything, but I'm
Mhm.
just like
Mhm.
I almost think like why, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't need to necessarily do trends in order to make your music work. Like for example, I'll talk about Samara Sin. You know,
Mhm.
she's a rapper and she has that Missy Elliott type flow, and you
Yeah.
know she went viral because of just simply like providing some cool ass visuals and
Yeah.
just rapping, just being
Yeah.
herself, right? And so I almost think to a point where it's like if you need to, the only way that you need to make your music work is by you doing multiple trends. Then that kind of just says like, all right, your music, you're just trying to make it trend, not
Yeah.
last, you know.
Yeah.
And that's I get it. I really do
Mhm.
get it because it's like
Yeah.
you're trying
Yeah.
to find
Yeah.
your audience, you're trying to bring
Yeah.
in people. At the same time, it's like it's just there's just different ways of doing it. And I mean, I like bro, there's so many different ways. And I'm not telling artists to not post on social media. Like
Yeah.
obviously you should.
Right.
But I'll say that post the process of you doing your work. That's
Mhm.
the approach that always works because it's like you're getting your audience, you're letting your audience in by seeing the behind the scenes content, you know,
Right.
stuff
Right.
like that. And I mean, there's a lot of people who made it work, whereas like their stuff is trending on social media, but usually like I'm not gonna sit here and say like it's unforgettable, but like I feel like
Yeah.
maybe like oh man, maybe it lasts for like 2 3 months, but where is it gonna
Mhm.
be in 2 to 3 years?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and you know, as far as the direction of music, and I also see how AI is making that effect too, of course. You
Yeah.
know, but I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say AI is all bad. Like AI, it depends on how you
Yeah.
use it. Like for
Right.
producers and stuff like that, AI could be cool. Like just
Yeah.
kind of working that part. But as far as
Yeah.
artists go, like, obviously, you know, like nowadays we can't even tell what
Right.
Drake is saying is real or what if
Right.
Kanye
Yeah.
and Kendrick saying is real, and so people have like this mindset. And nowadays, as you may know, fake news spreads faster than real news. And
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
we live in this visual age where people are just gonna believe fake news, and unfortunately, that's just kind of ridiculous. But that's just the way the world works. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just kind of the way I see it. But as far as the direction of music, you know, I mean, I just want artists to stay true to themselves. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't want artists just 1 minute be like at 20K and you know they get these high
Mhm.
number counts. And they're like, all right, man, I give me the freedom to do whatever I want. You know, like no, that's never the case. Like
Right.
you should never have that approach. Like if you have that
Yeah.
approach, then you're only doing it for social media.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
it doesn't matter for me, like, if I hit 10K or I hit like 50K. You know, I'm still
Yeah.
staying true to myself. Like, of course, I want to
Yeah.
highlight artists on like a higher level because, like, maybe I never discovered their work and I could talk about it in a different way. But like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
highlight artists who are like at 500 followers or at 2,000
Right.
followers. Like,
Right.
that doesn't matter. The number count doesn't really matter for me. What matters to me is that you're trusting your work, you're trusting your process as an artist, and you're actually doing creative stuff. You
Yeah.
know, you're not just trying to make something work forcefully. And that means that you put in no effort. Cause like to be an artist, you got to put effort in. Like the same
Mm-hmm.
way that you want to be great at anything, it takes effort. You know, like, and I see the most ridiculous things work out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, like I can't be mad at it because like you made it work, right?
Right. Right.
But like at the end of the day, it's like at least present yourself in a way that's like makes your work timeless. Because I'm sure every artist's goal is to make their work last, like,
Yeah.
and memorable, not just
Right.
for the audience, but for themselves as well. And in order to do that, that takes effort.
Yeah.
That's what
That.
I want music to be. I want music to stay true to themselves, like,
Yeah.
because I'm sure you've probably seen some artists that are like trying to focus on making their work trend and not making their work
Mm-hmm.
timeless. I see
Mm-hmm.
that like
Yeah.
almost every other day. So that's why for me
Yeah.
on Sunday, that's why I'm not even really bothered with music sometimes, because it's
Yeah.
like I hate I kind of hate artists' approach into music, and I kind of hate the way that the music industry is trying to push that agenda.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate
Yeah.
it. I kind of hate it. Like talking to like different labels, like from people involved with like Warner, Universal, UGM, and stuff like that. Sometimes I hear like people talk about like how like they should do a real specific way so that way they can reach more of an audience. And for me, that's absolutely tonkers. I'm like, you know, do this approach, and that what irks me. And how artists are trying to do this way just because some people in the music industry thinks it's the best way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to that point, like them putting a formulaic approach on it when all these artists are so different, I think that's the unfortunate thing I see a lot, where it's like you'll see a trend like you're saying, and you'll see it applied to like a hip hop artist or alternative artist or a country artist, and you're like, okay, cool. Well, why are we all doing the same thing? Um, and it's so interesting. I think this funnel of social media and how things need to work. And I think you made a really good point of people making things want to work for a short period of time as to like looking at their bodies of work. And I think another thing that social media has done very interestingly, I think it's separated some artists from their work in a way where you have a relationship with the musician, but not you maybe not even know they make music, because you're like, okay, cool, I'm consuming your personality, or I'm consuming the trendiness, or I'm consuming how I feel about this, and not really the music. So it feels like almost flipped on its head, where there's so much less time spent sometimes on the quality of the music, or what it's saying, or why it's saying those things. So I, again, like, love how you have taken time to really highlight people at so many different levels, very authentically. Um, and yeah, lastly, I want to see if there are any artists at the top of your mind that you've been listening to, or that you want to shout out, or any people you want to shout out genuinely, like outside of music stuff. Even if there's anybody that you're like, good job for doing you, person. At the end
Yeah,
of this,
yeah. I already talked about my parents and brothers, so good
yeah,
job to them. Shout out to my best friend Daniel. He was also a big help, not necessarily creatively, but also he was just a big help as far as like talking to me and just kind of making things work. Good job to him. But artists I want to shout out. There's a lot of artists I can shout out, but I
come
want
on,
to
come
shout out
on.
the two artists that I swear I talk about their work all the time. And like
Yeah.
kind of truth to be told, whenever like I research for artists, I kind of focus on how they resemble to these two artists. Their name is
Mm.
Savvy and Lobo. Like
Ah,
I always put these artists. Lobo's R&B, Savvy's more like electronic, and he's
yeah,
experimental as well. But
yeah,
those were like the two first artists that I discovered early on, and
yeah,
they're both doing things. Like Savvy literally just got shouted out by Tizo Touchdown in his recent
yeah,
concert, and then Lobo had a performance at Major Stage. So like I consider them really good friends of mine. Like, and what's
yeah.
exciting is I have the opportunity to meet them in LA. Well, I have the opportunity to
Word.
meet Savvy. I'm going to LA in June, and so June 19th, so I can just say what's
Yeah,
up to him for the first time, and that's gonna be sick. But you know, those are the artists that always like I always picture them staying true to themselves. Like
yeah,
they made their work like really work out for them because they stuck true to themselves. Like they
yeah,
didn't try to be someone that they aren't. Like,
yeah,
and I'm not telling people to just go ahead and just copy them. Like, but as far as the approach of music, like be true to yourself. Be like, because I
Yeah.
see artists that like 2,000 followers, right? And they're trying to make their stuff trendy, and it's like, what happens when you do accomplish that goal, right? You hit the
Mm.
goal, you hit the goal of hitting 40K. If you go on Spotify, is it not match up the way you want it
Right.
to?
Right.
Like,
Right.
is it not have the exact same approach? Like, is your objective money? Because like, if your objective is money, then you might as well kind of quit if you're thinking
Yeah. Yeah.
you're gonna get that instantly.
Truly. Yeah.
Because like, you're not gonna get that instantly. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not an artist myself. I'm not an
Yeah.
artist at all. I'm just a person that runs a rabbit hole. I'm 23, so like,
Yeah.
truth to be told, I'm still learning new stuff about music
Yeah.
every day. But like at
Right.
the same time, I do acknowledge the fact on how hard it is to be successful, to make art, to make be an artist full time.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's almost like anything creative nowadays, and it's so interesting because when I was talking to one of my friends, Tony, we did some work.
Mm.
He's a videographer and photographer, and I was just having a
Yeah.
conversation with him. He was telling me like how essentially photographers and videographers, it's hard to really make like real good money because like it's
Mm.
creative. And that's the
Yeah.
thing that's so hard about being in a creative space is nowadays like people that really make money like that are really like social media managers, and like if you're really good at
Yeah.
it, graphic designers. It's
Right.
hard
Right.
to
Right.
really find your own path and make
Yeah.
money in your own way doing freelance work.
Yeah.
And if you think that being an artist is like you're gonna make money guaranteed, like the stuff you see on TV, man, you're you're kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
Kendricks, the Kanyes of the world, the all those artists that kind of flex their money, that took years. That took
Yeah.
honestly decades if you really think about it. Like, and that's why I recommend people to see like their backstories and their journeys. Like Genius,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
Kanye trilogy, it does a perfect job of just kind of giving Kanye's background and kind of explaining like how he came to be because like
Yeah.
his story was hard. And that's
Yeah.
what people
Yeah.
don't take. That's what people take for granted. It's like,
Yeah.
yo, I see what Kanye is doing right now, and I think my sound is similar to him, so
Right.
it can work for me because I sound
Right.
so
I
much like
got it.
Kanye. I sound so
Yeah.
much like Kanye, and it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. I know. I'm sorry for the rambling, but like I see
No.
so many times. I
Yeah.
hear so many times, and like this is like a PSA. This is like a public service announcement.
Yeah.
Stop trying to be someone that you're not. Be
Yeah.
yourself, because at the end of the day, the whole reason why your work really comes out and it's really good is because you're yourself. The same way that I had to be myself, in the same way that I had to figure out how I was gonna dig deeper in music and find my own sound, I made that work. Like I may not have the high number count or have the high following and stuff like that, but I learned that I just want to stay true to myself.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if it takes me a year or it takes me 20 years to reach
Yeah.
like 20K,
Yeah.
like as long as I stay true to myself and as long as I'm doing what it is I want to do. Because sometimes people forget when you run a social media blog, you're doing it for you.
Right.
Make
Right.
that
Right.
comes.
Right.
Like when you're running Procrastination Radio, you're doing it for purely yourself. Like, of course, you
Yeah.
want to highlight, artists, and of course, you want to get their recognition. But at the same time, when you think about it at the end of the day, you could just say like, "Hey, I'm not gonna post today," because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, your stuff, and it's kind of the
Yeah.
same way
100%.
that people need to approach their work. Yeah, that's the end of my ramble. But
No, that's
yeah,
amazing. No, I appreciate that so much because I think again, just the passion behind it is so needed. I think that's one of the biggest things I think you highlighted in what you were just saying. It's like at the end of the day, you are in control of how you come across in a lot of these situations as you're being a creative, as you're doing social media, as you're doing all these little things. But the one thing that's consistent is that I think people genuinely, whether they know it or not, want to see something or someone that's authentic. And yeah, I could talk for another 3 hours about this, and I think just talking to you has been really amazing. But yeah, just closing out, just appreciate you so much, and I'm very continuously excited to see what you do and how you just keep elevating your skills on your page, man. So shout out to you for the
oh
ninth
man, no,
time in this episode.
shout out to you, man. Nah,
Thank you,
actually,
thank
shout
you.
out to you, man. I see the things that you're doing, like. you deserve your flowers too. Like creative to
Thank you.
creative, like, you obviously deserve your flowers. You're doing things in such a unique way, and at the same time, you're presenting yourself with a different persona that like it's kind of rare to see. Like you're like one of the only few creatives that I see that actually has like an approach to graphic design and approach to like highlighting artists that's like almost similar to mine. So I see you highlight
Yeah,
creatives and
yeah.
highlight artists, and I'm like, dang, like I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dang, like this motherfucker beat me to the punch. Like because like I had it on set. Like I kid you not, you highlighted three creatives, and I was on a schedule that for Saturday, and I got so mad because I'm like, yo, like now I can highlight them because he already did it.
Bro,
And so
bro.
I'm like, yo, I
That's
gotta go to the drawing board, and that took me like another 2-3 hours just to find someone's work. Like, and I'm like, yo, this
Dog,
is crazy. Like he shares
that
he
is
shares the same
so
knowledge. With
funny. That is so funny
me.
because there's been
Oh
so many times that you have done that, and I was like, man, like I can't even post it anymore in the same way.
that made me
So I was
so
like,
mad.
bro, that's so funny. That is so hilarious. Nah,
It just
yeah,
shows how.
I've no, I know. I talk to people a lot about your page, man. Just like how much I love it, and I think it's just like you said. I think we're just very similarly, like we kind of just taking the same things on different kind of scales and with different people. So man, like that's so funny that you say that because that's I've been talking to people about that. I'm like, man, like I gotta be quicker now, right? Like he doing his thing. I gotta keep up, you know.
You know what? And now that you mention that, now that you're saying that, I'm taking mental notes. I'm ahead now. Thank you for
You
that. You're giving me food for knowledge. Nah, but for real, I definitely talk to you. I definitely talk to people about your things as well because I see what you're doing, and you're like
yeah,
at like a base level, and you're gonna elevate to like this high level. Like I kid you not, bro. The way that people will talk to me early on
yeah,
about like how like oh man, you stay consistent, you're gonna get to it. You're gonna get to like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
able to elevate. It's kind of the same approach. Like it's the exact
yeah,
same. I talk about artists all the time. Like whenever
yeah.
I have R&B artists, like yo, like I definitely want to like receive more recognition across various platforms. Who you
Right.
recommend? You're the first name that really comes to mind. You and like Charisma
Appreciate that.
Collective, because I
Yeah,
see you
yeah.
guys doing different ways in different creative routes. That's like so sick to see. Also, we're African Americans. We think
Come
differently.
on. We here, you know? That's another thing, yeah, man. It's like it's cool to see like somebody who looks like me doing what you're doing. So I think that's another thing that's always kind of especially in the spaces we're in, you know. So it's good to hear from, people who are inside those spaces directly, just on and just around how we do it. So man, like again, kudos to you for everything. Now we know we locked in for real, for real.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, yeah,
I gotta ask you, where are you
yeah.
from?
I'm from Florida.
Oh, you're in Florida.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm in
that's so
Broward. Yeah,
interesting. That's so
yeah,
interesting. Another thing that really doesn't get talked about as much with artist success is
yeah,
location. Like location
that,
is definitely an underlooked thing. Like when you think about it, all the artists that are like popping are like LA and New York.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's interesting how like really I was able to pop off because I'm from Antioch. Like no one knows where
Right.
that is,
I
and
was
I'm
gonna say
able to
that's
connect
what.
with artists from like all over.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that because that's like the first thing people ask, like, where are you based out of? Because I think people assume for whatever reason that like it has to be LA or it has to be New York or something, and I think just making different connections online, just like off of the friendship or whatever, um, you find a lot of people who are in those spaces. So then when you start like reporting on them, or people just assume it's like, okay, you got to be in either one of the two, but every time they're like Florida, they're like, oh, okay,
I
okay,
was
that's
thinking you were from
interesting.
the South, definitely. I thought you were from
Yeah,
Louisiana. That was like
that's
one of the
real.
vibes.
I'm
Louisiana,
glad.
and then I guess it's gonna be Maryland. I don't know
I'm
why. I was
glad
thinking,
it's the South somewhere. That's good. I like that got
yeah,
picked up.
like I definitely got the South vibes, but
That's real.
I was definitely thinking like, all right, like the way he presents himself, he's gotta be like
Yeah,
from Louisiana or somewhere near
yeah.
those areas. That was my mindset.
That's real. That's real, man. I appreciate that. Again, just appreciate this conversation so much, and hope everybody who has watched has enjoyed it. No matter where you are, if it's day, evening, night, stop procrastinating. Your dreams are waiting for you, so go get after them. Have a good day. Peace,
I
peace, peace,
appreciate you,
peace,
brother.
peace.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, yes,
Peace.
of course.